Somewhere in eastern Ukraine, inside a basement that smells like burnt solder and energy drinks, a 22-year-old kid who used to deliver pizza is watching a thermal screen. He spots a Russian BMP creeping through a tree line 6 kilometers away. He doesn't radio for artillery. He doesn't call in an airstrike. He picks up a controller that looks like it belongs to an Xbox, thumbs a joystick, and sends a $500 drone screaming into the top of that vehicle at 120 kilometers per hour. The BMP detonates. The crew never saw it coming. 30 seconds later, the next drone is already in the air. A different operator, a different target, same result. This isn't a lucky shot from some volunteer with a hobby drone. This is a system, a machine, a 24/7 around-the-clock killing operation that runs with the ruthless efficiency of a McDonald's franchise. Except instead of Big Macs, they're serving explosive-formed penetrators directly to Russian armor. And the unit that perfected this system? The 12th Special Forces Brigade Azov. They didn't just adapt to drone warfare, they industrialized it. They turned the kill chain into an assembly line. And right now, on the Toretsk front in Donetsk, they are running what might be the most efficient human hunting operation in modern military history. To understand how Azov got here, you have to understand where they came from. The 12th Brigade Azov started in 2014 as a ragtag volunteer militia. Football fans, nationalists, and ordinary guys who grabbed rifles when Russia-backed separatists started carving up eastern Ukraine. They were controversial from day one. Russia has spent a decade calling them neo-Nazis and designated them a terrorist organization. The Kremlin's entire justification for invading Ukraine, that whole denazification line, was built largely around Azov's existence. But here's what Russia didn't count on. Instead of destroying Azov, they forged it.
Russia claims to have taken complete control of the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol, the final Ukrainian stronghold in the devastated port city, with the last Ukrainian fighters said to have surrendered to Russian forces.
In 2022, the brigade made its legendary last stand at the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol. For 82 days, they held out against the entire Russian siege force, fighting from tunnels and bunkers while the city was leveled around them. When they finally surrendered on orders from Ukrainian high command, roughly 700 fighters were taken prisoner. Many are still in Russian captivity, facing torture and sham trials. The survivors and replacements rebuilt, and they rebuilt differently. They adopted NATO command and staff management systems. They created a soldier-centered recruitment process that interviews and tests every recruit before assigning them a role, something almost unheard of in the chaotic conscription environment of wartime Ukraine. While other brigades were throwing bodies into trenches, Azov was building a professional fighting machine. By September 2024, when the situation around the town of New York in Donetsk Oblast was described as catastrophic, Ukrainian high command sent Azov in to stop the bleeding. Russia had already claimed the town was captured. Azov counterattacked and took most of it back. While other parts of the front crumbled, Azov held. In less than 3 months on the Toretsk sector, they neutralized over 1,000 Russian soldiers. That's not propaganda. That's the number their own commanders have stated publicly. And they did it with drones. Here's where the McDonald's analogy comes in, and I promise it's not as weird as it sounds. McDonald's doesn't succeed because it makes the best burger. It succeeds because it built a system so efficient that a teenager on their first shift can produce a consistent product in under 90 seconds. The ingredients arrive pre-portioned. The grill times are standardized. Every single step is optimized for speed and repeatability. Azov did the same thing, except with killing. Their unmanned systems battalion was stood up in late 2024 with a specific mandate: industrialize drone warfare. The battalion commander, call sign Yas, described the process in detail in an interview with the War Zone. Every drone that arrives from the factory goes through their workshop first. Their technicians strip it, modify it, test it, and only then send it forward to a pilot position. A freshly manufactured drone, Yas said, is frequently inefficient straight from the factory. Their specialists make it combat ready. Then it goes to the pilot. The pilot tests it again. Only after this double quality control process does the drone enter the operational rotation. And then the rotation never stops. Pilots work in shifts around the clock. When one operator finishes a sortie, the next one is already seated, controller in hand, scanning for targets. Reconnaissance drones are in the air constantly, feeding coordinates to strike teams who launch FPVs within minutes. The whole thing operates like a conveyor belt. Spot, identify, strike, reset, repeat. This is what Bohdan Krotovich, Azov's former chief of staff, meant when he wrote that Ukrainian drones are a revolution at the level of application, scaling, and adaptability. It's not about having the best drone, it's about having a system that produces kills the way Amazon delivers packages, relentlessly, at scale, and with terrifying consistency. The only difference is that Amazon has a 30-day return policy and Azov's deliveries are extremely final. Let's zoom out and look at the scale of what Ukraine has built. In February 2022, when Russia invaded, Ukraine was producing roughly 3,000 drones per year. Nearly all of them were Chinese-made DJI Mavics imported by volunteers. There was no domestic drone industry to speak of. Fast forward to 2026, Ukraine's defense industry can now produce over 8 million FPV drones per year. That number comes directly from Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council. More than 160 companies manufacture FPV drones across the country. The FPV industry alone went from essentially zero to producing more drones annually than all of NATO combined. To put that in context, Ukraine's 1,200-kilometer front line sees an estimated 20 to 30 FPV drones deployed per mile of frontage per day. That means on any given day, there are thousands of kamikaze drones hunting Russian soldiers across the entire front. A French general stated that 80% of targets in Ukraine are now destroyed by FPV drones. Each one of these drones costs between $300 and $500. A Russian tank costs $3 million. A BMP costs $500,000. A single drone operator working from a basement can destroy equipment worth thousands of times their weapons cost. It's the most lopsided cost exchange in the history of warfare. It's like showing up to a sword fight with a swarm of angry, exploding bees that you bought on eBay for the price of a nice dinner. Azov is at the tip of this spear. Their unmanned systems battalion operates several hundred troops and tens of thousands of drones, FPVs, heavy bombers, reconnaissance platforms, and the new Seth loitering munition, which is an AI-equipped kamikaze drone that autonomously locks onto targets. Once a recon drone designates a target, the Seth flies itself to the kill. The Toretsk sector in Donetsk Oblast is one of the most violent pieces of ground on Earth right now. It's where Azov has been deployed since late 2024, and it's where their system gets tested every single day. In April 2025, Ukrainian High Command made a major structural move. They formed an entirely new army corps under Azov's command, led by Colonel Denis Redis Prokopenko, the same commander who led the defense of Azovstal. 5 brigades now operate under Azov's umbrella, making it responsible for one of the most critical portions of the Eastern Front. The fighting here is apocalyptic. Russia throws wave after wave of assault groups, often on motorcycles, quad bikes, and even golf carts, because armored vehicles get shredded by drones before they can reach Ukrainian lines. Russian soldiers have described the drone threat as inescapable. They can hear them overhead constantly, day and night. The buzzing never stops. Azov exploits this with systematic precision. Their recon drones establish a constant surveillance picture over Russian approach routes. When an assault group forms up, the kill chain activates. FPVs are launched in sequence, not one at a time, but in coordinated strikes that hit the lead vehicle, the trailing vehicles, and then the dismounted troops trying to scatter. There is no cover. There is no escape route. The drones see through smoke, fly around obstacles, and the fiber optic variants can't even be jammed because they don't use radio signals. The psychological effect on Russian troops is devastating. Captured soldiers have described the constant drone presence as unbearable, a sound they associate with death. Some units have started refusing assault orders entirely. Others sprint from cover to cover in groups of 2 or 3, abandoning any pretense of tactical formation, because anything larger than a fire team attracts a swarm within minutes. Azov's operators have adapted too. They've started using bait techniques, sending a single drone to provoke a Russian position into revealing itself, then following up with coordinated strikes from multiple angles. They've rigged heavier hexacopter drones to drop anti-tank munitions from altitude, turning what was once an artillery mission into something a 2-man drone team can execute from a van. An unmanned systems commander from Azov, callsign Bood, told Foreign Policy magazine that sending armored vehicles to the front line is now essentially suicide. It's hopeless to take an armored vehicle and just send it to evacuate any infantry positions, he said. You will be engaged on the way to that position, 100%. This is why Azov has also pioneered the use of unmanned ground vehicles, small robotic platforms costing under $20,000 that ferry ammunition, food, and water to forward positions and evacuate wounded soldiers. They're controlled via Starlink terminals from well behind the front, outside the range of Russian drones. Bood predicted that 2026 would be the year of the assault UGV, and he's been proven right. Robot-only assaults are now happening across multiple brigades. Russia isn't sitting still. They've deployed anti-drone corridors along the Pokrovsk and Toretsk fronts, mesh netting structures that physically catch incoming drones. They've flooded the battlefield with electronic warfare systems. They've built their own massive drone program, and Russian fiber-optic drones have started hitting Ukrainian logistics vehicles up to 10 kilometers behind the front line. An Azov officer with the callsign Lyric admitted that the Russians are using our tactics approximately the same as us. The drone war has become symmetrical in many ways. Both sides are adapting in real time, fielding new countermeasures weekly, and watching the other side's footage on Telegram to learn and copy. But here's the thing about copying tactics. Execution matters more than imitation. Russia can build the same drones, they can train operators, but they can't replicate the culture that makes Azov's system work. Azov has structural advantages that Russia struggles to match. Their NATO standard command systems allow faster decision loops. Their soldier-centered recruiting means their drone operators are selected for aptitude, not just grabbed off the street. And their kill chain, that McDonald's system, is optimized in ways that Russian units, still hampered by top-heavy Soviet-era command structures, simply can't replicate. Russian officers wait for orders from above. Azov operators make decisions in seconds. There's also the innovation pipeline. Ukraine's Brave One Defense Tech Hub connects frontline units directly with manufacturers through a digital marketplace. Brigades can order drones tailored to their specific needs and receive them within 7 days. New firmware, new airframes, new EW-resistant antennas. They go from prototype to combat deployment in weeks. The Western acquisition process takes years for the same cycle. Ukraine does it before your Amazon package arrives. Although, honestly, my Amazon packages arrive faster than my motivation to go to the gym, so maybe that's not saying much. Former CIA Director David Petraeus recently called Ukraine the arsenal of democracy, the same term used to describe America during World War II. He predicted that Ukraine will become the most important military-industrial complex in the free world. That's not hyperbole. What Azov and units like them have demonstrated is that the future of ground warfare isn't about who has the biggest tanks or the most expensive jets. It's about who can build the fastest, cheapest kill chain and run it 24 hours a day without stopping. Every military in the world is watching. NATO is already scrambling to adapt. The US-Israeli war in Iran has reinforced the lesson. 16 American Reaper drones were reportedly destroyed over Iran, each costing up to $30 million. Meanwhile, a Ukrainian FPV drone costing $400 can kill a tank crew from a basement. The math isn't even close. The McDonald's metaphor isn't just clever branding. It captures something fundamental about how warfare is changing. The side that wins won't necessarily be the one with the most advanced technology. It will be the one that systematizes killing, that turns war into a repeatable, scalable, never-ending process. Azov figured that out, and Russia is paying the price every single day. The numbers tell the story. According to open-source tracking, Russia lost over 2,000 armored vehicles in just the first 5 months of 2026 across all fronts. A significant and growing percentage of those kills show the signature damage pattern of FPV drone strikes: small penetration holes from above, internal fires, and catastrophic ammunition detonation. The drone operators doing this work are often younger than the vehicles they're destroying. There's something darkly poetic about a $400 drone built by a startup in Kyiv taking out a T-72 tank that rolled off a Soviet production line before the operator was born. So here's my question for you. If drone warfare makes traditional armor and infantry assault suicidal, And if a 22-year-old with an Xbox controller can destroy a $3 million tank from a basement, what does a ground war even look like in 10 years? Are we heading toward a battlefield where no human soldier can survive in the open? Where the front line is held entirely by robots and drones while humans sit in bunkers miles behind the lines? Or will somebody figure out a counter, some new electronic warfare system, some AI-powered defense shield that makes drones obsolete the way anti-aircraft guns once neutralized biplanes? Let me know what you think in the comments, and if this is your first time here, hit subscribe. We go deep on the stuff that actually matters in modern warfare. No fluff, no filler. I'll see you in the next one.